I want to start with a real conversation I had recently. I was speaking with a woman who is a bank officer. She told me that she spends hours of her own time creating templates so she can handle client instructions accurately, efficiently, and consistently. She has dyslexia, so she makes sure that she listens really carefully. She then translates verbal requests into the correct forms. She drafts letters precisely and she double checks everything. Her colleagues don't see any of that extra effort. What they just see is someone doing their job. However, behind the scenes, she's carrying far more mental load than anyone realizes. She's not slow, but she's very thorough. And that's a difference that matters. So that conversation has stayed with me because I see the same patterns across many workplaces. Capable people, hardworking people, people who care about doing their job properly. However, they're described as not quite up to speed, needing more follow-up, slower with certain tasks. Most often, it's not a motivation issue, it's cognitive overload. What on earth is cognitive overload? In plain English, it's what happens to the brain when it's asked to process more than it comfortably can at one time. We all have working memory, however, it's limited. So when instructions come quickly, when priorities change, when information is delivered verbally once and expected to stick, when there's pressure layered on top, the brain quickly reaches capacity. And when that happens, performance drop. This is not because the person isn't capable, it's because their mental bandwidth is full. That's cognitive overload. So what does this look like in the workplace? Well, it looks like verbal instructions delivered in a busy environment, several priorities moving all at once, and assumed context that was never actually clarified. There could be fast turnaround of expectations, emotional self-management required on top of task management. Some employees absorb that easily and others are compensating constantly. However, on the surface, both may look fine, and that's where leaders can misread what's happening. If someone needs instructions repeated, we can instantly question their attention or their commitment. In most cases, it's neither of these things. It's about how the information was delivered and how much processing was required to make sense of it. If the system is unclear, then the person carries the strain. So before you question someone's effort, look at the clarity of your system. When leaders misread overload as a motivation issue, they are increasing the pressure on their employees. More oversight, more urgency, more frustration, cognitive load rises further. Performance, however, still doesn't improve, and the environment has created the strain. The response intensifies. So, what can leaders do? Reducing cognitive overload is about clarity. Here are 3 practical changes you can apply immediately. First of all, make expectations visible, not just verbal. If it matters, write it down. Follow up important conversations with a short written summary. Use shared documents for decisions and priorities. Not everything needs documenting, just the things that people need to reference later on. Secondly, break tasks into defined steps and clarify what done looks like. Large open-ended instructions increase that mental overload. So clear steps reduce it. Instead of asking, does that make sense? Try, what's your first step? Or what feels unclear? That simple adjustment can change everything. The third thing, slow down important communication. Deliver key messages in 2 formats. Say it in a meeting, ideally supported by a simple visual, 1 clear point per slide. Pause, let it land, and then follow up in writing. I've sat in many meetings where information was spoken at speed, slides were packed with text, and long documents followed. I didn't have any chance of trying to keep up, and I often felt like everyone else had received a secret memo I had somehow missed. It's not a very pleasant feeling, and over time it chips away at your confidence. No one tends to exclude anyone, but the design of communication can quietly do exactly that. Around 20% of the population is neurodivergent, so that means a significant portion of your workforce may already be compensating in ways that you can't see or don't see. Many bring lots of strengths like their patterns and careful analysis and systems thinking and problem solving and sustained focus. However, they are more vulnerable to a high cognitive load environments. And it's not because they can't do the work. It's because the environment makes the work harder than it needs to be. When leaders reduce cognitive overload, accuracy improves, retention improves, confidence rises, high capability thinkers stay. When you design work for how people actually think rather than how we assume they should think, you don't just retain talent, you create the conditions for it to perform. Different brains are often your competitive edge. If this video today resonated with you, I would love you to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It helps me grow. And I like to share practical strategies like this regularly for parents, educators, and business leaders who want to build clarity rather than have more pressure. And if someone came to mind while you were listening to this, please share it with them. Sometimes one new way of seeing things can change how someone is seen at work.